Argentina's economy, once among the most promising in Latin America, now faces severe challenges. In recent years, the nation has coped with escalating economic difficulties, marked by a dramatic rise in poverty rates. As of the first half of 2023, the poverty rate in Argentina soared to a troubling 40.1%, reflecting deepening economic distress among its population. This increase in poverty levels, from 39.2% in the latter half of 2022, signifies a continuous and worrying trend. Inflation, a critical factor, has eroded incomes and exacerbated the living conditions for millions, fueling despair and uncertainty across the country. But how did it get to this point? How did a country that was prospering in the early 1900s turn course and start falling apart? How did a country go from being considered a global powerhouse in the 1900s go to being considered a developing nation? Before we answer these questions, click that like and subscribe button and hit the notification bell to stay updated with our latest videos. This channel will keep you updated on the most intriguing videos on economic topics all around the world. Argentina's economic history is a tale of fluctuation between extraordinary wealth and profound instability. In the early 20th century, Argentina was among the world's wealthiest nations, ranking in the top 10 globally in terms of per capita income by 1913. This prosperity was largely driven by agricultural exports, making the country an economic powerhouse. However, the Argentine economy began to falter in the 1930s. The nation's wealth started to erode, marking the beginning of a long period of economic decline and instability. This downturn was compounded by a series of populist policies introduced by Juan Perón after his rise to power. Perón's administration implemented income and wealth redistribution policies, which, while initially popular, eventually led to further economic challenges, including the erosion of the system of checks and balances vital for economic stability. The period from 1960 onwards was particularly volatile, characterized by recurrent economic crises, high inflation, and fiscal mismanagement. The Argentine economy faced repeated cycles of boom and bust, with each crisis eroding the gains of previous growth periods. The late 20th and early 21st centuries were particularly challenging, with the country experiencing severe economic instability and defaults on its debt. These issues have directly impacted poverty in Argentina, and as a result, Argentina has seen a steady increase in poverty rates, with economic crises exacerbating the situation for the nation's most vulnerable populations. The first half of 2023 saw urban poverty escalate to 40.1%, the highest in 3 years, primarily due to soaring inflation that has eroded household incomes and forecasts pointing towards further impoverishment. Argentina's index reports a disturbing trend: a 0.9 percentage point increase in poverty compared to the latter half of 2022, and a 3.6 point rise from the previous year's first half. Extreme poverty also climbed to 9.3%, marking a 1.2 point increase. These statistics, representing the state of 31 major cities home to about 29.2 million people, suggest a broader national crisis. Extrapolating these figures to Argentina's entire population of around 46 million, an estimated 18.4 million people could be living in poverty, with nearly 4.3 million facing indigence. This economic downturn has pushed an additional 1.65 million Argentines below the poverty line and around 230,000 into extreme poverty within a year. Alarmingly, nearly 60% of children up to 14 years old are impoverished, with 13.6% unable to meet basic food needs. 2023 witnessed a 201.4% inflation spike, significantly influencing the cost of essential food and services. The basic food basket, a key poverty line indicator, saw a 52.4% increase, with food staples rising by 55.1%. Concurrently, the Argentine economy contracted by 1.9%, with unemployment dropping to 6.2% in the second quarter. The lack of job opportunities is partly due to economic policies that have failed to stimulate sustainable economic growth. Policies such as currency controls, nationalization of key industries, and protectionist trade practices have often hindered economic development. Additionally, Argentina's history of fiscal mismanagement and inconsistent economic policies has deterred foreign investment and hampered domestic business growth, further limiting job creation. The prevalence of informal and self-employed work sectors, characterized by lower incomes, has led to many struggling against inflation and falling into poverty despite being employed. Wages in the formal and informal sectors rose by 47.3% and 41% respectively, yet failed to match the pace of inflation, resulting in a significant loss of purchasing power. The economic outlook remains grim and shows a deteriorating social reality, forewarning of worsening conditions. Argentina's economy is also heavily influenced by global economic trends. As a country reliant on agricultural exports, particularly soybeans and beef, global commodity prices significantly impact its economy. Fluctuations in these prices can lead to sudden changes in export revenues, affecting the overall economic stability. Furthermore, Argentina has been susceptible to external financial shocks, such as the 2008 global financial crisis, which led to a decrease in demand for its exports and a reduction in foreign investment. The country's limited access to international financial markets due to its history of defaults has also made it more vulnerable to global economic downturns. Under newly elected President Javier Milei, the country confronts a daunting economic crisis. The 201% inflation rate is a drastic increase from 2022's figure of 95%. The country's monthly inflation stood at 25.5% in December, up from 12.8% in November, but slightly below the 30% the government had forecast. Before the figures were released, Milei had said that if the monthly inflation rate came in below the forecast, that would be an accomplishment. This December figure, the highest monthly inflation rate of the year, reflects the nation's escalating economic challenges. In response, Argentina's Minister of Economy, Luis Caputo, unveiled a series of drastic economic reforms, including a substantial devaluation of the Argentine peso, now set at 800 per US dollar. This move marks a more than 50% devaluation. Additionally, the government plans to reduce subsidies for energy and transportation, with these cuts expected to commence between February and March. The markets have reacted cautiously, yet positively, to these shock measures. Argentina's country risk has slightly decreased, and the disparity between the official peso exchange rate and its alternatives has narrowed, a development that Caputo regards as a significant vote of confidence. During his inauguration speech, Milei warned of an impending monthly inflation rate spike, estimating it to be between 20% and 40% from December to February. His administration faces the formidable task of navigating the country through a period of exorbitant consumer prices, dwindling reserves, and the challenge of managing a $44 billion loan program with the International Monetary Fund, which they are closing in on a rebooting agreement. The review's approval is critical for reinstating the loan program's trajectory, which had deviated following missed targets shortly after its last formal assessment in August. Upon approval by the IMF staff and the executive board, Argentina would receive about $3.3 billion in disbursements. The Milei administration, recognizing the previous government's failure to meet agreed-upon goals, has requested a waiver for the program. The IMF generally grants waivers for missed quantitative performance criteria if it believes the program remains viable. Facing fiscal challenges, including a deep deficit, rampant inflation, and scarce foreign reserves, Argentina has implemented significant economic reforms. These include the previously mentioned 54% devaluation of the peso and plans to reduce energy and social subsidies to achieve fiscal balance by 2024. The IMF has lauded these measures as bold, essential for stabilizing the economy. Milei's government is also pushing for comprehensive reforms in taxation, electoral law, and public debt management, presenting a reform bill to Congress. Despite financial strains, with net reserves in the red, Argentina has managed its IMF maturities, partly through a $960 million bridge loan from the Development Bank of Latin America and the Caribbean. Morgan Stanley anticipates a revamped IMF program for Argentina in the latter half of the year, signaling cautious optimism for the country's economic prospects amidst these significant reforms and negotiations. We hope this video gave you an insight into Argentina's path to returning as an economic powerhouse as it was in the early 1900s. As always, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more in-depth global economic content.